My name is your teacher, Miss Cose, and we're back to our very fun lecture series. Today we're going to be learning about the kidney, and we'll go through the different parts inside the kidney and how it works. So I think you're going to really love it. But today, all of our lecture series so far, we've been having Landon here. But for the first time, Landon is not here, but a very, very special guest is. So please put your hands together for my teacher bestie, Mrs. Brown. Woohoo! Yeah, go Tori! Yeah, whoa! So,
Excuse the interruption, may I have your attention? I need all middle school.
That was just an announcement about tarp pulling. So we paused the video, but we're back. All right. So today we're going to be learning about the urinary system and the kidneys. But you guys actually just got back from Easter break, so it's kind of exciting. So I have a couple of questions for everyone in the class to answer. So firstly, what was your favorite part of Easter break? And secondly, does your family have any Easter traditions? So the professor that's in the class, please pause the video, have everyone go around and share about it, and then we'll reconvene. Okay, I actually do have, Tori, do you have any Easter traditions that your family does?
We'll dye eggs. But
You dye eggs, like hard-boiled eggs?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Do you guys do Easter baskets at all?
My mom used to hide stuff and do like a scavenger hunt for us.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah,
Oh, that's so
cute.
fun.
Yeah.
I like that.
It's
And
fun.
then now is it kind of just more chill because you guys are grown up, or?
Yeah, we just go to church
Okay.
and have a nice meal.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
Landon's favorite Easter meal tradition is his mom always makes lamb on
Okay.
Easter. So that's like kind of unique. I don't know if I'd like
I've heard
lamb.
of that one though.
But yeah, I guess the Passover lamb, like Jesus is the lamb. It works.
Lamb is really good too.
Yeah. But my family, we did Easter egg hunts.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a twist. None of our Easter egg hunts none of the eggs have candy in them. They all had paper in them.
Okay.
You're like, oh, is that better? Yes, it is better. So on the piece of paper, it was like a coupon for something. So like when we were a kid, we'd open it up and be like, date with dad.
Aww.
Or it'd be like, go to Color Me Mine, which is like those ceramic places where you paint the things and then you like go. So it's kind of hype. That's what we did for Easter. So that's our Easter tradition.
That's really cool.
And we always did that at my grandpa's house. So that is our Easter tradition. Then we go to church and get to celebrate Jesus. So yes, I'm happy that you got to share your traditions. I hope you had a great break, and I'm glad you guys are back. All right, let's dive in. So, have you guys ever heard of the Hold Your Pee for a Wee competition? Tori, have you heard of that?
I have.
Do you know what happened to one of the participants?
Yeah, I think something happened with her brain eventually.
There actually is something that happened with her brain.
Yeah.
So, the Hold a Wee for a Wee competition was when the Nintendo Wii first came out. I don't even know if you guys are old enough to know about the Wii. I think you are, though. But the Nintendo Wii, the most popular game was like the Wii Sports game, so you can play like tennis or like bowling. You hold the controller and you like do it. But Nintendo, this local what's it called? Like recording studio. What's it called? Radio. Like station. Thank you, Tori. Radio station. Extra points for Mrs. Brown. A radio station. They were hosting this competition where if someone drank mass amount of water and the DJ would say to drink a certain amount per hour and they didn't go and urinate during that time they were in the station, then they would win a wee if they didn't wee during that period of time. So there was a young woman named Jennifer Strange who actually died from holding her urine, but it was actually from water intoxication. So what you heard about with the brain was in water intoxication, we're throwing off the fluid balance within our cells. So water will actually end up rushing into our cells, which is most problematic in the brain. So it causes swelling of the brain, then death. So that's what happened to her. But I bring up the Don't Wee for a Wee competition because we're going through the urinary system today. So this highly connects to the function of the kidney, which is to create and develop the urine. So the urinary system has two main jobs that I want you to know about. So please write these down. But you don't have to, Tori, if you don't want to.
I need to answer
Let's
questions.
go. She's ready, guys. Like, she would be on our podium, okay? She's got the notes. She's like, I'm going to answer all those questions. Okay, the first job is to filter your blood and expel toxic waste from the body. So have you guys ever had this like candy, the toxic waste candy? This is what I kind of think of. But all of our cells generate different toxic waste that if it's not expelled from the body, our cells will actually end up dying. So we need to have a systematic way of getting rid of this waste somehow, and that's what the urinary system does. It concentrates the waste, puts it all in the same place into the urine so that our body can pee it out so we don't have to worry about it. The second thing it does is it keeps the fluid chemical balance stable. So because we're dealing with urine concentration and fluid concentration in our body, this can affect things like our blood pressure. So if we had a super low blood pressure, our body will actually decide to add fluid to our blood to increase the blood pressure. And it also is dealing with our electrolyte balance, so that's why I put Gatorade up here, and keeping our pH of our blood at a steady level. So, do you guys remember, Tori, this is kind of putting you on the spot, any root words, Latin root words for kidney? So this is tough because Miss Brown did not have our like quizzes, so she didn't have to memorize this. But there's two different ones. One of them starts with an R and one starts with an N. And if you know any parts of the kidney, the part that starts with N is like a root word for kidney. It's okay if you don't know.
I know.
Okay, I wouldn't know either.
Yeah.
So the two root words, let's see if you guys know it. But they're neph and ren. So neph, like nephron, the small individual units within our kidney, and then rene or ren, which is like renal. So if you ever hear anything that's renal, it's related to the kidney. So you guys already know that. You already know those root words. So we're going to actually be using them, and maybe you can remember them better today. So let's start out with the kidneys. If you've ever played the game Dumb Ways to Die, the song in the app talks about like selling your kidneys because you only need one of your two kidneys to live and survive. But the job of the kidney is to filter the blood and produce the urine. So I kind of think of our kidney kind of like the Brita filter of our blood system. We're trying to filter out the bad things, keep the good stuff so then we can use it. So there's three different things the kidney does to filter the blood, and there are three key concepts. So that's filtration, reabsorption, and secretion. So filtration is just doing exactly what you think. Like when you're filtering something, that's what the kidney's doing, and we'll go into depth about how it does that. But it's going to filter things and get rid of toxic waste from our blood. Reabsorbing is a term that means taking the good stuff that's filtered and putting it back into the bloodstream. So when we take our blood and we filter it, we're taking all this filtrate out, all this fluid and ions and nutrients out. But when we reabsorb something, we can kind of think of a sponge. We want to grab the good stuff and put it back into the blood system. But secretion is the opposite of reabsorption, and that's taking something from the blood and putting it into the filtrate that didn't get filtered. So filtration, reabsorption, and secretion, these are concepts that we'll repeat and go back over as we discover the physiology of the kidney. So you guys were given this diagram as a note worksheet. So just make sure to draw arrows to each of the things that we talk about and then label them. So here you can label the left and right kidney. It looks like a kidney bean, so that's helpful. So you can label those. Next, we have a bonus job of the kidney. I forgot our bonus job. So here's some bonus jobs that the kidneys do. They regulate blood pressure like we talked about, and they do that through a hormone called renin. We're not going to go into deep detail about the role of renin because renin works in tandem with two other hormones called aldosterone and ADH. You'll get to learn about that in your anatomy physiology classes in college, but I want you to generally know that it regulates blood pressure. Secondly, we've already talked about this before when we talked about red blood cells and hemoglobin. So another thing that the kidneys do is it produces erythropoietin. Do any of you guys remember in the class, you can pause it, what erythropoietin does? Remember we talked about this when we were talking about the effect of high altitude training on an athlete. Tori, do you have any idea what erythropoietin, sometimes known as EPO, does? It's kind of obscure, so it'd be very surprising if you knew. Yeah, it's kind of weird. So, have you heard though of Lance Armstrong? Okay, do you know what Lance Armstrong did? That was bad.
Oh, he took steroids?
Yeah, he took banned substances from the Tour de France, and so he was stripped of all of his medals.
Okay.
One of the things that he took was erythropoietin, because what erythropoietin does is it acts on our bone marrow and it increases the production of red blood cells.
Okay. Yeah.
And so you actually have more red blood cells, which means you have more hemoglobin to carry oxygen. So your body becomes way better at carrying oxygen than like the average person. So that's why EPO is a banned substance. It's like, oh no, it's bad. Okay, the last bonus job of the kidney is it actually activates vitamin D, so it actually works. So what do you think are some roles, do you know any roles of vitamin D in our body?
Helps with bone strength?
Bone strength, yes! What's up, Miss Brown? Bone strength is totally one of them. And something else is similar to vitamin C that vitamin D helps with.
Your immune system?
Your immune system. So both your bones and your immune system are from an activated form of vitamin D. So if a patient came in and they were having renal failure, kidney failure, what would you expect, like some things that could be telltale signs of that if our vitamin D isn't getting activated?
Maybe they're pale or they are sick.
They're sick all the time. They're pale. Okay, what else with bone strength?
A lot of broken bones.
Yeah, broken bones. So
Okay.
actually, if we're having kidney failure, this will lead to osteoporosis.
Yep.
So the root word osteo is bone. Porosis means holes in it, like are porous. So when we have kidney failure, it also come with osteoporosis. So if you have a patient presenting who's been sick all the time, who is, retaining water, breaking their bones, you could be like, oh, there's a kidney problem going on. Okay, cool. Right above the kidneys are our adrenal glands. Our adrenal glands produce hormones. We're going to talk about this more when we go through the endocrine system. But if you just think of the word adrenal off the top of your head, what word comes to you?
Adrenaline?
Adrenaline. So yeah, exactly. The adrenal glands produce norepinephrine and epinephrine are adrenaline hormones. So it's like if someone's like, oh, stick them with the EpiPen, that natural hormone is being produced in the adrenal glands. And the other hormone being produced in there is aldosterone. So the one that's dealing with renin, what we just talked about with the blood pressure. Okay, now as we travel down the urinary tract, we have these two tubes. They're muscular tubes called ureters. These carry the urine from the kidneys and dump the urine into the bladder. Now, these tubes move urine with smooth muscle in a wave-like muscle contraction called peristalsis. Peristalsis. And this is actually important. The ureters have one-way valves in them so that the urine can't go back up into the kidney after it's left the kidney. That's important for something like a UTI, like a urinary tract infection. We wouldn't want the urine to be able to travel backwards because then that infection would be carried into our kidney and we'd be like screwed. So they're one-way valves. So that means that if you flip someone upside down, I don't know why I thought of this like spinning wheel thing, when people throw the knives. But if you were upside down, you still can't have the urine travel backwards, right? You can still also get urine to your bladder when you're upside down because what's moving the urine is peristalsis. So I have a question for you. Where else have we seen peristalsis in our body? Where else is there that rhythmic contraction?
The blood vessels in your legs? No.
Okay, yes, so there is some type of rhythmic contraction that happens in our venous system from our muscles. But the tubes themselves, is there any place in our body where the tubes themselves create their own peristalsis to move things along?
The heart?
The heart has rhythmic contraction, so that's another rhythmic contraction, but it's not peristalsis.
Okay.
Is there any other place that we're moving something along a tube?
The lymph system? I don't know.
See, Miss Brown knows too many systems. She knows too much. One of the places where we see this the most, this exact same type of movement, is in the digestive tract.
There you go.
So, Miss Brown knows too many bodily systems, so she can connect it everywhere. But our digestive system uses exactly peristalsis, that same exact muscular contraction of a long tube to get a bolus of food down into our stomach and then throughout our intestinal tract. Good job. All right. Finally, we get all the way down to our bladder. So in our diagram, it's actually a female body because you see behind the bladder is the uterus, then the rectum behind that, that'll store the feces. But in the bladder, our bladder is also made of smooth muscle. They call this the detrusor muscle. And so I have a question for you guys. How much urine in cups do you think that you can hold in your bladder? And then whoever gets the best, you can pause it. Whoever gets the best answer, closest to the right answer, can win a candy. And Miss Brown's here by herself, so she gets candy because she wins. But Miss Brown, how many cups of urine do you think your body can hold?
In the bladder?
In the bladder.
I'm gonna go 2 cups.
That is exactly right. That is literally exactly right. In females, the maximum is 2 cups.
Dang.
In males, it's 2.5 cups. So this equates to like 700 milliliters in men.
Yep.
I think it's 500 milliliters in women.
Probably.
So very impressive. Miss Brown just gets the gold
Wasn't
star.
winging that one.
But what's happening here is our bladder is filling actually from the bottom. So we don't drip from the top, it fills from the bottom and fills up. But as this inner lining stretches, it's actually going to initiate a stretch reflex, which will turn on our parasympathetic nervous system. Tori, do you remember if our parasympathetic nervous system is rest and digest or fight or flight?
Fight or flight?
Fight or flight is sympathetic.
Oh, yeah.
So parasympathetic is
The rest and digest.
rest and digest,
Yep.
exactly.
Yep.
So as the bladder stretches, it turns on our parasympathetic nervous system.
Okay.
Our parasympathetic nervous system will contract the bladder just slightly, and it will open the internal sphincter, or like relax it. Now this is important because what this means is have you ever been like on a road trip and you had to like hold your pee forever and you just like thought you weren't gonna make it? Like, has that ever happened to you?
Yes.
Yeah, it's like literally the worst feeling in the
worst.
world. This is because after the bladder, we have something called the urethra, right? And so the urethra is coming down from the bladder, and then this is how the urine will exit the body. So we have a sphincter at the top of the urethra and at the bottom. So we have an internal sphincter and an external sphincter. The top one is not controlled by our brain. It's involuntarily controlled by that parasympathetic nervous system. So this one will open up once our bladder hits that 2 cups. But our external sphincter is controlled by our mind. It's voluntarily controlled by skeletal muscle. So that's why when we have this strong urge to pee, this top one is open, the pee's ready to leave, but we are closing this one with our brain, saying, wait, I haven't made it into the 7-Eleven restroom yet. So that's why we're able to hold our pee for a long period of time, even when the internal sphincter is open. Okay, so finally, we have now the kidney anatomy. You guys have a diagram of this on the back of your note sheet. And you don't need to fill all this in right now, but there's 2 key things I want you to do for this last part of the lecture. The 2 key things, you guys can come and come back to the PowerPoint and label it properly. But the main things I want you to focus on is something called the renal cortex and the renal medulla. So the outermost layer of the kidney is called the renal cortex. And you see it's lighter in color on the outside. And as we go deeper in, we get to what we call the renal medulla. And that's this entire section made up of renal pyramids, these little segments. And something I need you to know about this for you to understand how the kidney makes urine is that the renal medulla, the deeper part of the kidney, is more salty than the outside of the kidney. It's a lot saltier as you get deeper in. And this will cause the movement of water, so we'll talk about that. So, the main functional unit of the kidney is called the nephron. So that comes from our word, neph, right? So the functional unit of the kidney is called the nephron. And it looks like this. So actually, I would advise you to draw this in your notes. Tori, do I have more room in that board or this board? You don't need to move it.
The one over
This
here.
side?
Yep.
Okay. So I would draw it like this. Wow, my voice is crazy. You just need to make sure to have this big tube and then this side like this. I'll move so you can see it. Smaller. Goes up like this. All right, so you'd have a diagram like this in your notes. Now, this will be the last thing we learn today. Now, I want to point out to you, this is what we just drew, but this is how it would look more in the kidney itself. And I want to remind you, even though we're isolating a nephron to learn about it, there's going to be a blood network that surrounds all parts of these tubes and walls. That's important to remember because we're going to be putting stuff back into the bloodstream, and I don't want you to think, oh, we have to go a long way to put things back in. No, the little capillaries are going to be surrounding this whole nephron, but when we're talking about it, we're not going to see it. So I'm going to represent that by putting like kind of a bloodstream on the top of it, but just remember it's all throughout. But I have another guessing question for you. How many nephrons, so these units, do you think we have in each of our kidneys? So how many of these are in one of these?
Ooh. How big are they compared to the kidney?
They're very small.
Very small?
Like very small.
100,000.
That's a great guess. Do you want to know the answer?
Yes.
1 million! 1 million! So we can't even see an individual nephron in here. But it's going to be taking up the stretch of this entire thing. So this, actually check this out. This is really cool. This picture that we use is two-toned. So do you see how the top part of the picture is white?
Mm-hmm.
The white part shows that this part of the nephron is in the outer cortex, the lighter part. But this pink part at the bottom is actually going to be dipping into the medulla, the inner cortex of the kidney. So you can think about that as we're going through, because this collecting duct where the urine is going to end up draining into this bottom part of the kidney and then going into the ureter, then into the bladder, that's what's going to dip all the way down, as this collecting duct goes all the way down. And then what other part of this tube do you see going into the medulla space?
Wait.
What other part of this goes down into this space?
Of the nephron?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Just this little U part of the tube.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So just this part of the tube and the collecting duct goes down.
Okay.
The rest of it is stored on the outside.
Okay.
Okay, so let's finish up this lecture. So this part right here of the nephron, it's gonna look like this, and there's gonna be a blood vessel coming into it, and then a blood vessel going out. The blood vessel going in is then going to narrow and coil up like this, like crazy. So actually there's going to be a pressure difference when we go from a big, thick vessel into this small thing. So do you think it'll be higher pressure or lower pressure in here?
Higher. Higher?
Higher, yeah. So we're going to increase pressure as we go into this space. This space is called the renal corpuscle. Renal meaning kidney, corpuscle means small body, like corpse, small body. So we're talking about, a small little body of the kidney. The capillaries that come into here are called the glomerulus. So they're a tiny ball, like almost like a ball of yarn of capillaries. Surrounding it, though, is called the Bowman's capsule. So that's what's holding the capillaries and creating continuous space. Like you said, Tori, as you said, the blood is coming into this vessel, and as it gets into tinier capillaries, the pressure increases. And as that pressure increases, the blood pushes out fluid into the Bowman's capsule, and the Bowman's capsule catches this fluid because of the pressure difference. And we call the fluid that is caught, we call it filtrate.
Okay.
And that filtrate is what's going to turn into our urine. So it catches the filtrate. And I think of it like this. I think of it like if I'm making spaghetti and someone actually put poison into my spaghetti. I'm like, why did you do that? Like, why did you poison me? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to strain the spaghetti and I'm going to wash it off to then keep this spaghetti. So I'm going to pour the spaghetti into a strainer. In this case, it'd be like pouring it through the capillaries of the glomerulus. Then the sink catches all that fluid. That would be the Bowman's capsule. And then what continues on is my spaghetti, which is just red blood cells and proteins that didn't get filtered out. So the next piece of this is this part, which is called the proximal convoluted tubule, or PCT, proximal convoluted tubule. Now, we have the directional terms that we've learned, and we have proximal and distal. Mm-hmm. I know that you haven't had our vocab sheet, so you may not know, but do you know what the terms proximal and distal mean in relation to the body?
Distal is like further down your arm. Proximal
Yes,
is closer to the
totally.
Yeah.
So Miss Brown already knows them. Proximal is closer to an attachment point. Mm-hmm. Distal is further away. Mm-hmm. So we see that works here too, because this tube here, spoiler alert, is going to call the distal convoluted tubule. So as we get further away from this renal corpuscle, this is called proximal because it's closer to it. This one's called distal because it's further away, just like what we do with our anatomical body.
Nice.
The proximal convoluted tubule has one job. It allows us to reabsorb, or that concept we used before, returning something to the blood, reabsorb nutrients, water, and ions. And basically, it's our body saying, oh, I wanted to keep this stuff that I just filtered out. I wanted to keep that. Mm-hmm. So in this space, we will transport all that stuff back into the bloodstream. So this is glucose. This is amino acids. That's why I put all the amino acids. This is different nutrients and water even. We don't want to get rid of all of our water, so we bring water back in the bloodstream in this section. It's the main place of reabsorption. Next, we'll continue on. This entire loop, which the bottom half of it dips into the inner cortex, the medulla of the kidney, this entire loop is called the loop of Henle. And the first part of the loop is called the descending loop because we're going down. The second part of the loop is called the ascending loop. So each of them have an interesting function. The descending loop, this first part, is permeable to water. What does it mean that something is permeable?
It can cross the membrane.
It can cross the membrane, so it can go either way. Water can go either way. Exactly. It's helpful to have a biology teacher as a student. It's permeable to water. So I have a question for you. If we get increasingly salty as we go down into the medulla, to the inside of the kidney, what do you think will happen to the water in the filtrate in this descending loop if this is salty out here and it's permeable to water? Water can go in and out. What do you think will happen?
It'll leave the loop and go to the salty portion of the medulla.
Exactly. We've seen this before. The water is going to leave the loop. Water is going to actually be reabsorbed into the blood vessels because of how salty it is deep in the medulla. So that's why I did this dam breaking. It's like all the water is leaving the filtrate. And the water is doing that because it's following an osmotic gradient. We saw that same thing when we were looking at the colon, how our colon reabsorbs water into the bloodstream. We need electrolytes or we need salts. The colon will transport the salts first, and then the water will follow the salt. That exact same thing is happening in this descending loop of Henle. As we get down lower, there's tons of salt, so the water leaves to try to create equilibrium, to try to create balance. So it follows the osmotic gradient, gets reabsorbed. We're returning water to the bloodstream. Now, as we get to the bottom of this and all the water is leaving the filtrate, what do you think the concentration of the filtrate is at the bottom of that loop?
It's going to increase.
Yeah, it's going to get super concentrated. It's going to get concentrated with sodium, chloride ions. So it's actually going to become incredibly salty inside of the loop at the bottom part because we've just gotten rid of all this water. So, said that. Now, as we get to the bottom, the filtrate is super salty. But as we go back up, this second half of the loop is not permeable to water. So water cannot leave or enter. But we have a really salty filtrate. So what do you think will happen to create equilibrium? Because now the inside of this tube is way more saltier than the outside of the tube. And we're trying to make equilibrium, but we can't move water back into the tube because it's impermeable. So what could we do to try to reach an equilibrium?
Can you remove some of the filtrate?
We can! So up this entire tube, we're actually going to transport the sodium and the chloride ions, those salt ions, out of the tube. We're going to transport them out so that we can reach equilibrium again. So as we go up the tube, the salt ions will leave the filtrate, so it'll dilute the filtrate, and they'll leave. It's actually okay. You don't need to talk about this passive and active transport because I think this is complicated enough. But at the end of class, you're going to be using Play-Doh to make a nephron and then label what happens in each place. So maybe that's something you could look into. That active and passive transport that happens along this tube that can give you some bonus points. But as we're going up, we're getting rid of the sodium and chloride. We're actually reabsorbing them back into the blood. And now we have a diluted filtrate again.
Nice.
Finally, the last two parts actually work together. So this last bit, like we said before, is the distal convoluted tubule. This will secrete waste, but we'll talk about this even more because both of these tubes are essentially doing the same job. The last part that we'll talk about today, the last slide, is this part is called the collecting duct. And this is where our final urine product is made. The last thing we're going to do in both the distal convoluted tubule and the collecting duct is we're going to secrete waste from the bloodstream into these areas. So remember, secretion is the opposite of reabsorption. Reabsorption is putting things back into the blood. So the opposite of that, secretion, what does secretion do?
Take things out of the blood?
Take things out of the blood and put it in the filtrate. Exactly. So our blood is going to do something which I call dump the hunk. It's just a fun way to remember what you're putting into here. Hunk stands for H+, which are protons. What does H+ determine in the blood? The more H+, the higher or lower.
The electrical balance or no?
So H+ determines something in our body. The more protons in a solution in chemistry even. If you add protons.
pH?
pH, exactly. So we want to get rid of some protons and dump it into the collecting duct because we want to make something less acidic. So that's why. So we're taking protons out because it's waste, because maybe our blood is too acidic. Urea is another waste molecule. It's like toxic. NH3+ is ammonia, another toxic waste. And potassium actually we'll take out of the bloodstream because we don't want too much potassium. It can mess with the electrical rhythm of the heart. Because, we have the sodium potassium pump that allows us to generate electrical signals. If we have too much potassium, then we can't generate signals properly. So we're going to dump the hunk, dump all these things into our distal convoluted tubule and into our collecting duct for us to pee out. Because the end of our collecting duct here at the bottom will connect to the ureter. So we're getting all that urine, all that waste out. We had reabsorbed water, reabsorbed nutrients into the bloodstream. That's how our body makes urine. So now, thank you for being a part of my lecture. You're now going to take Play-Doh, like we did before for the digestive tract, and you're going to make a nephron. Going to roll it up, put it on a piece of paper. Then you're going to label each section, and what you see is the function of each section, and show it to the professor in the class. The professor will check it, be like, good job. And then you can keep the Play-Doh and give the paper to her to grade. So thank you guys so much for being a part, learning about the kidney, and thank you to Miss Brown for being our audience today. Bye.